What would you say of our regulatory environment when it comes to business in Ghana?
Yeah, this is an interesting question. Right. So, I mean, over the years, I did some work with the GIZ of the German embassy, and we found out that regulations in Ghana are quite stifling businesses, both local and international. That is why often
regulations in Ghana are stifling businesses.
Yeah, businesses. They suffocate businesses. It takes about 504 hours. I mean, legally to obtain a permit at GSA, Ghana Standard Authority. 504 hours.
504 hours.
Yeah, to take to have a license at Ghana Standard Authority, right? So that is the legal timeline. Now, if you really want to go through the processes in the normal circumstances, I mean, it would take you close to about 800 hours to obtain a license in Ghana.
Double.
Yeah, that is almost double the number of hours. And business to some extent also do not know, every year or every 5 years, the law says that we are going to increase the cost of doing businesses. So the dynamics even cause for the World Bank to change the ease of doing business to business ready report, which is more extensive and detailed enough for you to understand the business regulations in Ghana. And there are numerous of them, countless. Manufacturing alone, you need close to about 13 certificates to operate a manufacturing business, depending on the size, the transition, and even the location. 13 different certificates. It tells you that in Ghana, there's no business that operating within or having all the certificates at a time, because this will expire today, and the following the other will expire, and then once you start working on this one, the other has also expired. Sometimes they could even expired within the same month, and you have to start having the energy, the money, the time to go around searching for these institutions to renew them. So it is not that friendly. It is not that friendly. Personally, I'm an entrepreneur. I have my own business, and look, the permit, the number of permits I need to operate, the number of licenses I need to operate, the number of registrations I need to do, the number of engagement I need to do, the cost involved. So one of the researches we did, we realized that if you have 100,000 Ghana cedis, you must spend about 30% of that for just regulations, right? 30%.
So it means that, for example, if you have about 3 million, you may have to use the 30% of that 3 million.
Yeah,
which would be somewhere around.
So 100. That's about 900.
That'll be 900,000.
Yeah,
just on regulations.
Yeah, depending on the sector you want to work.
Getting licenses,
permits, other registration certificate. Right. Now, do you know the impact of this? So 900,000 Ghana cedis per what you gave me means that close to about 5 people may not get employed. Right, if you are paying somewhere around 5,000 to 7,000 Ghana cedis in a month, 900 people. I mean, 5 people will not be employed out of this because they have to use the employees' salaries to fight for regulations.
Yeah,
right. So to some extent, it reduces the impact when we really want to go into employment. So if regulations stifling businesses reduces employment, right, reduce the energy. I mean, the appetite to start a business, many businesses will not formalize. And you can see the night markets. There are a lot of businesses working the night. Nobody wants to formalize because of the processes, the cumbersomeness. There are times the institutions will even walk into your offices and start harassing you for certificates. It happened to me, right, I think 3 days ago. They came to offices, harassing a lot of businesses for certificates and licenses and renewals. So it is not that friendly. But I think we are making progress.
How so? How are we making progress?
Right.
If for example, all of the picture that you've painted speaks of difficulties in, you trying to establish a business and even thinking about sustaining a business over a period of time.
Yeah. So the business ready report has 3 pillars when it comes to business entry. So we have the entry, and then we have the operation, operations.
Yes.
You need to do your renewals and stuff. So there are 3 pillars. So the first one has to talk about the entry. So the business registration operation, time for registration and time to operate. Then the other talks about time and cost involved. And then the third one talks about digital public services. Now, I'm saying we are improving because FDA, for example, has very good websites. When it comes to digital public service, I think they are ahead of most of the regulatory agencies. Ghana Standard Authority is also doing the same. Recently, we saw ORS also fighting to get its websites on. Ghana Tourism Authority also doing so well with the online. So it tells you that to some extent we are doing well when it comes to digital. Only that we don't have the interoperability among the institutions. So information sharing is not that there's no synergy there.
Yeah.
Right. So if I register a business at OIC, which is the entry registration certificate,
Yes.
it should get to all the various regulatory institutions in Ghana. So I don't need to go to FDA and provide the same certificate again, right? So FDA will just, key in my name and then get the information and ask you to provide the various completed forms, and then off we go. But then you have to carry these very certificates to all the 13 to 14, 15, or 20 institutions, right? You need to carry that paper. There's no interoperability. So interoperability shouldn't be just between the telecommunications for Momo. We can do interoperability also between the regulatory institutions.
Yeah.
So it becomes easier for businesses to just have their certificate.
So there should be some level of synchronicity amongst the entities or institutions that are providing similar services for people who want to establish their businesses in this country.
And then there comes the overlaps, right? So FDA looks at food. Ghana Tourism Authority looks at food. So you need certificate from FDA, you need certificate from Ghana Tourism Authority. Though they will tell you this is FDA, these are our guidelines, this is what the Act is saying. GTA is also telling you, this is what the Act is saying, you need GTA license for hospitality. So as FDA is going around, GTA is also going around. And that overlap is disturbing, quite disturbing. The other issue has to do with lack of information or information asymmetry. So I was accosted, or I was intercepted by the AMA recently in Accra because I had a sticker on my vehicle advertising a business I'm doing, and I was told to have a permit for that advertisement.
So a permit for that advertisement within that particular jurisdiction.
Yes, within that particular jurisdiction. Though I'm from Tema.
You're from Tema.
I could have done that in Tema.
In Tema.
I didn't know there is a law that says that.
A regulation.
I didn't know. So when I got to Accra, I was accosted that I need to have that permit. So I paid 770 on the spot to have that permit sticker.
Paid how much?
770 Ghana cedis.
On the spot?
On the spot.
For having that sticker?
Sticker on
advertising
my car.
a business?
Yes, and it's a local government law. Right, so I paid that. Now, FDA also does advertisement. So imagine my business is into maybe drugs or food, right? And I was accosted because I have it on my car. If I want to go on radio or TV, I must go to FDA.
Yes.
For another advertisement.
True.
Right.
Yes.
So I have double paid for advertisement at the local level and at the, let's say, central level, making the cost of business expensive. Right. So the whole picture is that the cost of business in Ghana is disturbing.
Let me come to one, and I mean, within Europe, in Spain, if you're to look at how business is conducted in those jurisdictions and to compare it to Ghana and Africa, I know that you've had conversations like you just mentioned with some business people in the country. What would you say are the differences? What would you say are the similarities?
Well, I come from one of the most heavily bureaucratic countries in Europe. The level of licensing and zoning and all types of hindrances on business is quite high, but I believe not to the extent that I have seen here these days. And this is why it is so important for think tanks like ILAP making the cause for easier business, which will result in more jobs and more wealth for the whole of the Ghanaian society. So there are basically two things that we have which might be important to implement in Ghana as well, and that I think ILAP is promoting to have. One of them is what we call the positive administrative silence. And that means that in many cases, it's not possible to implement it for everything, but in many cases, when you as an entrepreneur or as a citizen ask the government for permission to do something, if a reasonable time passes, like maybe 3 months or 6 months, and they have not responded, then the positive administrative silence means that you are already entitled to do what you were asking for. So the burden of denying it is their burden, and it is not your burden to obtain a permit.
Or
It
the
is
license.
their burden to deny it in due time. So that eases things a lot, because you apply for whatever, and if they have a lot of business, a lot of cases, and they are not able to respond promptly, then you just go ahead. And the other one, which is even more important, is what we called the responsible declaration. And that responsible declaration means that for many smaller type licenses or certifications, you can just, instead of needing an inspection to come to see your business and authorize your activity, you can just download a form in which you declare solemnly, with all the legal provisions, that you have implemented all the things that the law requires for your business. For instance, just imagine a restaurant, and you have the smoke exits, you have the type of accessibility for disabled people, or you have any other things that you have to comply with. Okay, you just certify yourself that you have implemented this and this and this and that, and that you are compliant to everything that they are asking. And of course, if later they come with an inspection and you lied, then you have committed a criminal offense, because you have lied in an official document.
Yes.
But so most of the people will not lie. So 99% of the businesses will just do this responsible declaration in a proper way. But what that means is that you ease business, because you declare it yourself under your own responsibility with that responsible declaration, and you can open and you can start your business. And also the cost is much lower, and the resulting possible instances for corruption are also smaller, because one thing is to have randomized inspections to check things, and another one is to inspect absolutely each and every business and not allowing them to operate until the inspection is completed.
And so you feel if we are to adopt these two strategies, it will help the ease of doing business in Ghana.
Yes, absolutely. I think this would be very, very good. And also, there are like too many different authorities that need to certify or to license you to operate. It's way too many. I think maybe a policy reform that could be implemented in Ghana would be to join them, to join some of them. I mean, in some cases.
So to merge some of the authorities.
To merge some of the authorities.
Or at least to take some of the responsibilities, so that there isn't anything like overlapping responsibilities by the different entities.
Starting a business should be a matter of a couple of days, and it should cost a negligible amount of money that anyone can pay, because business is for everyone. Business is a right that people have. It should not be something that only the very rich can do. It should be for the average man in the street or woman in the street to start a business, and to be able to pay for it just with reasonable resources that they already have. It should not be something for the elites. It should be for everyone. Business is for everyone.
Business is for everyone, but in our part of the world, it looks as if it's not for everyone. Looking at the obstacles that one have to deal with in registering your business, in letting the business operate, in sustaining the business over a period of time as a result of regulations that we have in the country, sometimes indeed prohibiting growth or prohibiting sustainability in this part of the world. But the question therefore is, at what point, what should be the level of government participation in the operations of business?
As small as possible.
In this country?
In this country and in every country,
in every country,
it should be as small as possible. Government is always a hindrance. Government is always an obstacle for business. Sometimes it is necessary. It's a necessary evil, but evil nonetheless. So what I mean by this is that it should be kept at bay. It should be kept as small as possible. And that means two things: regulation that we were discussing, but also taxation. Also taxation. When I see some of the taxes that are applied for imported goods that are consumed in Ghana, it is amazing. Cars, for instance.
Yeah.
Very few people in Ghana can afford a new car,
True.
just imported through the legal channels and sold here, because the tariffs for that car are brutal. So the car is already expensive in itself, but then if you apply the government tariff on that car and the VAT or the taxes that apply to the car, it's prohibitive. It's something that very few people can afford. And a society cannot operate in that way. It should be normal for the average middle class Ghanaian to be able to afford a small new car. That should be something normal. It should not be something only for the elites in some posh areas in Accra.
Bismarck. So, I mean, what we've seen over a period of time now is that government is directly involved in virtually most of the businesses that are conducted. And the classical example is the spat between DSTV, that's MultiChoice Ghana, and the Republic of Ghana, represented by the Communications Ministry. How do we deal with such issues? Because they're already in there.
Right. So, it is not the duty of the state to determine prices. Already we are experiencing what we call private monopoly of the DSTV.
Yeah.
So the multi-choice is private monopoly. There's no competition. There's no other multi-choice like competing with, prices.
Pay-per-view TVs in
there's
the country. Yeah.
Right. So you could take this classic example from telcos in those days when we had only one touch. Right.
Yes.
So one touch was selling SIM card around 300 Ghana cedis, which
True.
could be the annual salary of a Ghanaian
Yes.
in those days.
Yes.
Right. You can't afford it. Then gradually we had Space Phone coming on board. Then we had Etel coming on board.
Yeah.
Then we had Kasapa.
Yes.
Now what happened to the SIM card? It got to a time it was virtually free.
Yeah.
Because there was competition for customers, competition for prices, competition for whatever kind of thing that will make the company grow. So where there's competition, prices will reduce. Now, there's private monopoly. The argument between DSTV and the government, using the confrontation approach in public policy to ask a private company to reduce your prices, is unfounded. You see, my issue is that encourage more businesses to enter into the free-to-air, whatever kind of telecasting or broadcasting. Then you could have a lot of these prices coming down. Now, Nigeria, they also experience the same thing. What was done in Nigeria legally is not ethical. And not everything legal is ethical. So it was done legally in Nigeria, which wasn't ethical. That's why we should bring it to Ghana. Right. So I was expecting the minister to call DSTV, have a meeting with them. Even the minister did not have the power to some extent to instruct a business to reduce prices. You don't have that power. Your power as a minister is at the board level. You only work with the board to put in legislative or policies and send to parliament for maybe amendments or improvement or a bill. It ends there. NCA, the National Communication Authority,
Which is the regulator.
who is the regulator? You, the minister, you're the regulator. You're only a policy design person. You design policies. And for you to come out to say that means that you only
Was he overstepping?
You have. And he must understand that he has overstepped his boundaries as a minister. So you come to communicate before you go to NCA to instruct NCA to do A, B, and C, right? So if you look at the various press releases, you will see that NCA is doing what we call engagement, whereas the minister is doing what we call confrontation. And that is different. You see, so DSTV I like how DSTV is amendable here, saying that, look, I'm not going to reduce the prices unless we have a talk. And that is that. So I think for us to have lower prices, we should have more of the DSTVs in Ghana to compete on prices and compete on quality services, just like what we see in the telecommunication sector.
So we should allow the market to determine
The market should
who
determine.
stays.
You can see what has happened to the dollar as when government intervened in the dollar exchange rates. You've seen it. After intervention is going down, what is happening? The dollar is also now hitting the ceiling. So what I expect the government to do, too much intervention is dangerous. And it has been tested to be dangerous. And we are still doing it. And we cannot do the same thing over and over and expect a different result.
Is it that we've not seen the implications of government's intervention in certain sectors of the economy?
Well, there's so much inefficiency in its interventions. You see, sometimes the intentions may be right, but efficiency in delivery is what we get them wrong. So yes, to some extent, we need government intervention in regulations. But the intervention should be a form of business facilitation, not always revenue generation and not always of restrictions. Because if you're in an economy where you are facilitating businesses to grow, because businesses create wealth, they make people prosper, they create their jobs, right? Take businesses out, government will have no revenue, because government takes the revenue from the private sector.
True.
You see, so government does not tax itself. I mean, if you're a government worker and you work and you are paid and government is taxing you, I mean, I ask myself, how do you tax your own self? You see, but the whole taxes come from the private sector. So ensure that businesses are able to operate, transition from micro, small, medium to large, and make a lot of money from them, because they will employ, when you employ the private sector individual, they pay taxes to you. But the government sector, you take from the private sector to pay the government sector. And you again tax them as, I mean,
you're taking back the money.
Yeah, I don't call that taxes. You see, the rate taxes are those taken from the private sector. And you can get that from businesses. Okay, so ensure to have the businesses to grow, support their intentions. Do not come to make it more political. Now, as we speak now, certain businesses have closed down because there's a change of government.
Yeah.
They've closed down. And others are also being hunted because they took some contracts from the previous government. And this cyclical behavior won't help the economy. That is why you see our growth of GDP is always dwindling, like a pendulum. Today we have 3 point this, the next day we have 2.1. You see, there's no stability because of how we run the business environment. So I think that, look, currently there are no jobs. The businesses are also not able to expand. Regulation is part of that. If you have a business, 10 business today, 10 out of 10 will tell you what they need most is money, funds. 10 out of 10. Do not mention regulation as a priority. Why? Because they think that when they have the money, they can expand. But they forget that most of the money is also going to regulation. Okay, so you can take the loan and you can use 30 to 40% of that loan to regularize, to get it out, to come to the limelight. So in the process, you have lost 40% of your loan for regulation.
Of the capital that you intended to use for the business.
Because if you don't formalize, the banks will not even give you the money.
True.
And you also have to renew so that you can still stay in business.
Yeah.
So in that process, only 60% will go into the business. How much will 60,000 out of 100,000 do for you in terms of expansion?
So the question will be, how are smaller businesses or small and medium-sized businesses actually thriving? What approach has Spain used? What approach do you happen to find in Europe that you think may be applicable to our situation here? People are calling for protectionism. People are saying that, look, we should attempt protecting local businesses, let them grow to a certain extent before we allow any competition within that sector. Do you agree to that? Or you feel there should be a regulation of a sort that says that, as a libertarian as you are, we should create an equal playing field for everybody to be within the system? If you survive, it will depend on the strategies that you put in place.
In just one sentence, the less regulation, the better. The less government interference in business, the better. It is counterintuitive sometimes because people will say, no, I need to be protected by government.
Yeah.
But that is an illusion or a delusion, because that protection is really not working. And they are more protected if they are left alone, if they are left in peace to do their business.
Businesses are more protected if they are left alone.
Yes, absolutely. Just imagine, in a country like Spain, the percentage of small businesses as part of the GDP is very high. It's like 75 or 80%. And the percentage of people who are working for medium or smaller companies is even higher, like 90%. So very few people, relatively, are working for the very big companies. But still, it is the very big companies that can lobby the government, because they very often are in bed with government, and they can get regulations which make it difficult for the smaller people, for the smaller businesses to compete with the big ones. That is a problem. So what we stand for in Fundalip, which is the think tank similar to ILAP in Spain, is to reduce that regulation and to make it possible for the economy to be as free as possible, to be really a spontaneous order in which things are managed by a multiplicity of actors operating in the economy and not by one big actor, namely the government, taking all the decisions and making people suffer as much as they do through over-regulation and over-taxation, which is the main problem we have.
Which is the main problem we have. Happy 98.9 FM now. Was a good sweat, you know. It was a macabrofo pa brofo, macabrofo pa. Me born a tougher Eddie at 10 minutes past the hour of 8. Otien can a ye embra, a hodua ye yo, a boa, a meet me, a menuma hodo, a coso, a woman, a home como, and an opay yet to channel. Now, Yatuchen Comona Baby say, and Penufam no mudin common say, Senkabeya and Carbine dear. Odiane say, obeye, ama, a ye, a quinano, ediamo bia. Obi awo o papa so ono abaye na nkran juma ono na nkonye na abane ntwene ho mfiri mu na nkonko gina soro kakra na oma wono mu a wo mo pre e wo different sectors no mu no wo mo empre yenya ne ntie se enei no oye wadwene se okwa akopesika e de akwa akose odwumadi ase a eye enkrata nko a obehia no bebro beye edunum ansa na benya sankrata no kura efiri some of the agencies wo no na eye emre ananka wo hwe animu no abro so kura be yempri no ehu sika a oba betua no enye sika ketwa nti yefa na se bia uguta mpemdu na wai wadwene se ode bekwa akɔhye adwumadie bi mu a emu ha mu chichemu be ye aduasa kopem aduanan be kire 30 to 40% de ende ode kwa akɔpɛ nkrata na zis kana ka he zenu aka ho bi nti enene enyuma hodo no a entumi mie wo montaba mu omuntumi mie nkrabata hodo emfa amanfo emomu enye adwuma ewo omamu mpanyifo no mienu ekobenkuro mu o madwene kobenkuro mu se look nke be ya ka ban de wode mra no ba de beto ema yen no ma ye pese yidi dwuma no yehunu a na watwe ho enye bribia ene wo se odo ho ehemu. But then that brings into the free of the conversation the issue that happened 2-3 days ago at Abosokan, when I mentioned about protecting certain sectors of the economy, certain sectors of industry for local government. You're saying that we should allow everybody to participate. We should, if even there is a foreigner that is coming into the country and wants to enter into that particular sector, we should allow that to happen. We shouldn't protect the interest of the local people.
No, so the interest of local people is paramount, right? But when it comes to business, it's about wealth creation, it's about job creation, it's about prosperity. Now, if an immigrant is in Ghana and that immigrant has a skill to, let's say, create cocoa powder, right? Mm-hmm. Now, or maybe sell in the market, like Abosokan, competitively, because, you know, most of the immigrants have competitive prices compared to the Ghanaian counterpart.
True.
Yeah, so I can buy an item from a Nigerian at, let's say, $2, but I can buy that same item from a Ghanaian at $10. Right.
Yes.
So many Ghanaians will like to buy from the immigrants.
Of course.
Because the immigrant want to make just small profits and make a living, where the Ghanaians want to make huge profits at a time. So to some extent, the same Ghanaians who are shooting themselves into into that situation, you know, because 300% profits as against maybe
5%, 10%
profits.
Yeah.
Obviously, we all prefer to buy from the Nigerian. So that competition in pricing between the immigrants and Ghanaians, you know, young Ghanaians, you know, we have done that. I think that.
Oh, we should blame ourselves?
We should blame ourselves.
The Ghanaian trader?
Yes.
Should blame himself or herself?
Then they know very well.
For the pricing.
Good,
but the argument also is that, well, if you're looking at the cost implication of importing those products into the country, it's high. And I am not into that particular industry to make losses. I'm into that particular industry to make profit.
All right.
And so if I'm looking at margins, I'm looking at the taxes that I'm supposed to pay. Right. I'm looking at all of that to set prices.
All right. So
why should I be blamed?
So I've done I've picked some intelligence around some of these sales. You know, these Nigerians, they pick some of these materials, wholesale prices from Ghanaian wholesale shops. From Ghanaian wholesale shops. So you imported a product. A Ghanaian went to pick that up, and a Nigerian also went to pick the same item up. Yet when we go to the market, we have different prices. Immigrant price lower. Yet I agree that the immigrant don't pay taxes because they don't formalize their businesses.
Yeah.
I mean, they do tabletop and petty trading, right? So they don't formalize their business. Instantly, yes, I think what do we call Ghanaian to some extent may I mean the law should be flexible a bit and allow immigrants to also register. You see, if the law prevents immigrants from registering, especially acquiring certain certificates, passports, and other business documents before they can register, it also delays the processes for having the appetite to register and then contribute to the economy. The immigrants also support the economy, one way or the other. Once they pay, they may cost a loan, they use the internet, they're also supporting the what's it called, the communication tax, right?
Yeah.
They pick transport, they support the entire full economy, right? So let's find a common ground to also allow immigrants to register. We can create a platform for immigrants to register their businesses and then show them which areas they can trade, which areas they can do business, and support by paying taxes. By saying, don't trade. If they don't trade, what should they do? You find them into, social vices. You then find them robbing. Sometimes when arrests are done, they say Nigerians. When arrests are done, Nigerians, right?
Yeah.
So if you don't want the immigrants to work, what should they do? Create a platform. All immigrants should register there. Get certificates. Get the various business requirements. Let them go into the market to also do business. And pay taxes. Maybe equal to Ghanaians or lower than Ghanaians to support the economic growth. Because if they make all the profit without paying taxes or paying for regulations,
and then repatriate all of the profit.
That could be. But they're also investing some of their money here because the Nigerians renting, the Nigerians building, the Nigerians expand their businesses. The Nigerian can put a trolley all over for about 6 months, 8 months, and 1 year. The next thing you see him with a shop. Right? So with a shop, what is he doing? He has rented, supported the shop owner to some extent with some money. Then 1 or 2 employees will also come on board to support the entire value chain. What happens? Employers have grown up. So the thing is that we are not conscious about getting immigrants a platform to support their integration as part of the business growth in Ghana. But all that we say is go away, stop the business. As I said, we cannot do the same thing over and over and expect a different result.
So we've been doing it wrongly.
Yeah,
over a period of time.
Closing the shops.
Is it that?
And what happens?
Is it that we are not looking at the gains that
immigrants
exactly from the immigrant community that would want to enter into the retail business?
We haven't, because they can't even create bank accounts.
True.
Even Momo, they can't create that.
True.
They have to rely on Ghanaians to have Momo accounts or transfer money. But if they have a Momo account and they are even into other businesses, these transactions volume will also add up to the entire Bank of Ghana's reports.
I mean, and this brings to the question, because I was reading a document, I think about a month or 2 ago, which was talking about the shadow economy. Do you feel that some of these things contribute to the shadow? And that's a very huge economy, very big one. Do you feel that some of these regulations that are in place, restricting foreigners from operating in certain sectors of the economy, to a larger extent, in Ghana and across the continent of Africa, are contributing to the shadow economy?
Obviously, yes. That's what I'm saying, that it is time for us to consciously think about how we integrate immigrants or foreigners from Niger, from Chad, from Togo, from Nigeria, Gambia. This is the time. The law must be amended and say we are creating a platform. And this is something we must start doing from now. And I know, the policymakers are listening. Let us have the immigrants also integrated. Let us create a platform for them. Let them be registered. Let them register their businesses. Let them start operating, create bank accounts. I think it's something it's long overdue.
Messages are coming in, and necessary because, bro, we are enemies when it comes to pricing of our goods and services. We like the price. We hike the prices as though there is no tomorrow. I agree with the gentleman in the studio. And then the issue now comes to how should we treat international businesses that are operating in Ghana? Are there lessons that we can learn from Spain?
Well, I think that the main lesson that we all, both Ghana and Spain, should learn is that the more closed a country is to people, capital, investors, goods and services, and data, the worse for that country. Isolationism is impossible in a global economy like the one we have now all around the world. So every country will be better off if it opens up to international transactions. And so, for instance, having people from anywhere in the world maybe from Europe or the States, but also from neighboring countries, buying property here and doing business here, it is good. And it is also good for Ghanaians to go to other countries and start businesses there and invest there and employ people there. There are no borders anymore. There are, if I may put it this way, there are no countries anymore in the traditional sense of the word. And yes, Ghana can benefit very much from international capitals, and it doesn't need to be $1 million to start a business here or to be able to.
So you think the $1 million is too high?
Yes, that threshold is incredibly high, because very many business, there have always been multinationals which are very rich and which operate with millions and millions across countries.
True.
But now, because of the digital revolution, there are very many multinational small and medium companies which maybe have 2 people in Milan, 2 people in Istanbul, and 2 people in Accra. And they are all specialized in something, and they meet online, and they can do their business, and it's not a $1 million business. It's something that they can do with 10,000, for instance. So these kind of thresholds, these kind of very big thresholds, and regulations that make it impossible for people to do business unless they have a local partner or to buy property. These kind of things are bad. They are bad for the people who would like to come here to do business, but they are worse for the Ghanaians themselves, because the Ghanaian consumer is losing the possibility to consume the goods and services that company would create for them, and which will not happen because of regulation. So when we come to see what policies or laws should be applied, I think that we should all think that the consumer, and that means the final citizen, the ordinary citizen, should be king. It should be the final consumer deciding what goods or services happen in the country, and not the government, because the government will sometimes, with goodwill, try to do some things which will be a disaster, and very often it will also be protecting the interests not of the average Ghanaian, but of the elites and the large companies which are already established, against the new businesses, local or from abroad, that could come to compete with them. And competition is extremely important. Competition is the mother of excellence.
But some say that, for example, the entities that are in the country perhaps may not be having that mettle to compete with the companies that have already established themselves. They are coming in with large capital or huge capital. They are coming in with a certain degree of expertise. And if you are allowing them to enter into certain sectors of the economy, it will be to the disadvantage of the local entity that is already operating in the system.
But will it not create a lot of jobs? Will it not create cheaper and better goods for the Ghanaian consumer? Who do we want to protect? Millions of Ghanaian citizens and consumers, or just a tiny established elite which controls the current business, which are protected by those laws? I think it is better to protect the whole population and to make them have better and cheaper goods and services than protecting a few already established local entrepreneurs from competition by national or international new competitors.
Happy 98.9 FM. We may be wrapping up our conversation very shortly, but I cannot end the conversation without asking the question on Africa Continental Free Trade Area, which is something that a lot of African countries have ratified, I may say, but its implementation is slowing a little bit. We say Accra is the commercial city of Africa as we speak now. Do you agree? Do you agree to that? Aside the establishment of after headquarters in Ghana, if you're looking at the environment within which we do business, would you agree?
I think business is vibrant in Ghana and in Accra, and I am sure that yes, you are one of the main points in the continent where trade and to some extent a very sufficiently free trade is going on. So this is good, and Ghana should continue along that line and go much further. And this is why institutions like ILAP are helping very much with the policy reforms that they are proposing, so that this continues. Yes, I think free trade is quintessential. We are now seeing a trade war, a tariff war launched, waged by President Trump, which is disastrous for their own consumers in the States, first of all, but also for international trade generally, globally, which is being disrupted. And I think that Ghana will need wisdom to navigate these difficult times ahead of all of us. And it is important that the mentality, the mindset of the Ghanaian policy makers and lawmakers will always be with easing things for everyone, cutting borders, cutting regulations, and making trade happen across the Ghanaian borders for the good of the consumers and the citizens of Ghana.
Peter, they can do kind of trim.
Right.
Yeah, can we can
You know, so the continental free trade.
Yes.
Yeah. You know, so for me, I believe in free trade. But the after is becoming a challenge because, look, we don't own the after. I mean, it is being sponsored by foreigners. The entire implementation process,
yes.
design, everything, we don't own it.
Yeah.
So we look up to the source of funding for its implementation. Again, there are a lot of internal issues countries are, trying to solve, and they think having the peace is more important than trading. They want to first have peace, then they trade. So if you look at the various countries with border disputes, internal
conflicts, internal strifes,
you know, political instability.
Yeah.
So it looks like African countries are focusing on the internal issues than cross-border trade. That is why you don't see the volume, you know, of trade between countries and among countries on the continent. So what I could say is that we should try and pilot it in a way where...
How do we own it?
That means the investment should come from us. The idea should start from us. Because we are just importing some of the concept from the European jurisdictions to what we do.
Yeah.
But you know, Africa in the African context, everything must be African. But if you look at the entire ratification processes, as well the entire document itself, if you read widely, you might see that look, these are things we will not be able to implement along the line because of country interest is one. Everybody has his own interest, and because if ratification took time, some countries didn't want to ratify.
True.
Even though this is a borderless trade, it's going to help. Then there comes privacy issues, technology issues, cyber issues, internet issues. So, I mean, countless issues that we need to address on the continent.
You did not add a taxation issue.
Well, and the tax issues, you know, as we speak now.
The payment issues.
Yeah, the payment. I mean, look, you can't even make a call to Burkina Faso.
Yeah.
You know, to make a call to Burkina Faso, just a border from Ghana could cost about 50 Ghana cedis for a minute.
Yeah.
Right, that's about $50 or $40. You know, it's expensive. So doing business on the continent itself is a challenge. So, and as I've told you that many countries are using it for revenue generation. Whatever they do is for revenue generation, over business facilitation.
Yes.
Now take this: for every one regulation introduced, all right, it's add up to the 10% of the cost of the product. For every one regulation introduced. So if you introduce 8 regulations today, 10% of an item, if it's let's say 10 cedis or $10, another $10 will be added for a new regulation,
making it $20.
Making it $20. That is why you can see most of the items are quite expensive.
And that should be added to the cost of production.
Cost of production, yeah.
Yes.
And you know, businesses don't pay taxes.
True.
You know,
we pay the taxes.
We pay the taxes. Yeah. So they will offload it onto us. So free trade is something we must cherish, but we must make sure that we put much effort into it. Like the effort is down, and there's coup all over West Africa now. Trying to go democratic. Others also still want to embrace authoritarianism. Public reasoning is low. You know, public participation in certain countries are low. Even after, to some extent, I mean, participation in Ghana was low. You know, it was just about education, which is good. But do you participate in the processes? I mean, it looks like it's been imposed on us to accept it. But I think it's a good thing. But the implementation process has been slow because of internal issues countries are working on. Debt to GDP issues, borrowing issues, elections, change of governments and interest. You know, I can tell you that we go to even set up some of the regulatory institutions. the CEO has interest in certain products over other products.
Yes, it's true.
All right. And then others also have interest in exports.
Exports, yeah.
Than imports. I never knew if the city goes up, the city depreciates, exporters are happy.
Yeah.
And then when, so these dynamics are things we need to look at. But going forward, AU must also play a role. It's like AU is slow and its implementation processes, because I know there are a lot of politics also there they have to address. African countries, leaders do not meet more among themselves like they meet with the European countries. So you can see Russia Africa Summit and they all move there. But
when are we going to have Africa Summit?
Africa Summit or Ghana Africa Summit or
Ghana Nigeria Summit, Ghana Cote d'Ivoire Summit, Ghana Congo Summit.
So
when are you going to have such?
So these are the things that will help us put together policies and protocols to help us take off quickly when it comes to free trade.
The final question to Juan will be: what kind of lessons can we learn from the European Union? How they were able to, kill their borders, and trade amongst them. And moving from Germany to other countries is easy. What do we need to learn as
the European Union was a very good idea and ideal 70 years ago, and it has gone through a bad path. Some things are very positive, like the free movement of people, capitals, the Schengen Treaty, the possibility that we all can just establish anywhere in the countries which are parties to that treaty and start business or be employed or employ someone tomorrow. And that is very good. Another very good thing is the Erasmus program, which mixes education so that anyone can study anywhere, and there's a lot of exchanges, which in a continent with so many different languages is also important. So some things have been very good. But the problem with the European Union, it has been over-politicized and over-bureaucratized, to the extent that some people call it the European Soviet Union now, because it is so much stagnated because of over-regulation and supposed alleged protections which are not so, which are in fact hindrances to the people's movements and government. The other problem with the European Union is it has not been able to stand with one voice internationally as a bloc. The European Union is the second economy in the world over China. It's the second just only after the US. And still, it's not able to speak with one voice on world affairs in matters of defense and foreign affairs, which would be the two areas where we should come together and be one voice. Instead, we are making all kinds of bureaucratic things about the agriculture and paying people to not cultivate this or that, and this kind of stupid things, in my opinion.
Well, and Peter, it's been insightful, interesting having you on the show this morning. Your final words for Ghanaians you're leaving. When are you returning to Ghana?
Well, as soon as I can, really.
Your final words for Ghanaians who are listening to you this morning. What would you tell them? What would you tell government? What would you tell businesses? What would you tell the African continent?
I have seen incredible businesses here, small businesses, people who are starting up on digital, on cultivation of particular things to produce some beverages, on many things. And I think that this is not the future, but the present of Ghana. Small businesses, small startups with wisdom and with a clear vision, thriving. And I really hope that thanks to institutions like ILAP, it will be possible for the Ghanaian state to do the policy reforms that are very much needed for those small businesses to prosper.